Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Horror Corner. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Gershon. This week we're doing another movie review. This is The House That Dripped Blood. Released in 1971 from Amicus Films. Yes, the other major British studio that cranked out horror hits in the 60s and 70s. Other one being Hammer Horror. And a lot of them also starred Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing. So yeah, Amicus Films did a lot of great films like the original Tales from the Crypt movie, The Vault of Horror, and Madhouse with Vincent Price. Yeah, great stuff. So The House That Dripped Blood also was very successful in the U.S., even more so than the U.K., believe it or not. So The House That Dripped Blood is 4 short stories written by Robert Bloch, who penned Psycho. Yeah. So 4 great stories. You had Method for Murder, Waxworks, Sweets to the Sweet, and The Cloak. So fantastic film. One of the best anthology horror films. I think it's something that anyone could enjoy. Sit down with a family and watch at Halloween time would be perfect, So the film revolves around this guy, A.J. Stoker, who is a real estate agent. Stoker, get it? Bram Stoker. And he rents out this house to different clients, and bad things happen in this house, Has a lot of bad, dark history in this big, beautiful, gothic mansion, Not necessarily always in the house where the bad things take place. They're just bad things happen to the people that live there, So the first one is A Method for Murder, where we meet this writer who writes horror stories. And he's currently writing one about a serial killer who is like a strangler by the name of Dominic. And he's just getting so into it, and he feels that this house, this big, beautiful Gothic mansion, will be a perfect place for him to write and to vibe off, and come up with a lot of creative ideas. And he does, but he gets so into it, he gets so determined, he's like obsessed with this novel, obsessed with this killer that he's writing about, He even sees a therapist about it. He tells him, I saw Dominic in my house, and he starts seeing Dominic in the house, visions of him, and he starts freaking out like he's really there, or is he really there? So that's the basic that's the basic gist of that story, and his wife is there with him in the house, and she's freaking out because he's seeing these weird visions of the murder, and she's scared that, is he going to turn into the character, that he's writing about? And the next story is Waxworks with Peter Cushing, the legendary Peter Cushing, and he does a fantastic job in this movie. I love it. And this is a really fun story of this guy who comes to stay at the house, and he ends up going to this local waxwork figure museum, this wax museum with all these horror, wax figures, really cool stuff. Perfect for a horror film, And you almost think, like, what's this going to be? The waxwork figure is going to come to life. And he sees this one, head of this woman, this wax head, and her eyes look so real, and he's really intrigued by this woman. He's like, ooh, she must have been a beautiful woman. And then the caretaker of the wax museum comes and tells him the story about her, and that was his wife, And, so Peter Cushing was very intrigued by this, and he's freaked out about it at the same time. and he meets up with his friend, and then has his friend go to the wax museum with him, and he kind of meets a grisly fate, you know, and ends up with his head on a plate, you know. And you see his realistic looking eyes. And then Peter Cushing starts freaking out. Oh man, this guy's a killer. He's killing people and turning them into wax figures, you know. And, you know, he has it out with the caretaker. And this guy busts out this nasty old medieval style axe, battle axe, and like goes at it, you know. It's a really fun story. I'd say it's the most fun out of the entire movie. And then there's Sweets to the Sweet, which is the one with Christopher Lee. So awesome. He is so good in this. It's just classic Christopher Lee all the way. I love it. Such a commanding presence that Christopher Lee is in all the movies that he starred in, you know. And this one is really fun. It's about this... So Christopher Lee is the father of this really young girl, and they come to stay at the house, and he hires this woman as the nanny, very beautiful blonde woman, and, you know, just be weary of, you know, she's not what you think she is, you know, and she just seems like a real nice little girl, you know, normal, but there's something deeper going on with her, you know, and she tries to, you know, build up a rap with her, and she gets to know her a little bit and finds, yeah, she's just a sweet little girl. What's your problem? And she sees Christopher Lee as very, like, controlling of her, and he treats her, he's very mean to her and cruel to her, you know, and the nanny is like, wow, what's your problem, man? You know, it's just a normal little girl. What's the matter with you? He won't let her have toys or any kind of thing like that, you know. And we do find out that there is something off about this little girl. There's something deeper underneath the surface, if you will. And that's basically the gist of that story. I don't want to give too much away on these because I want you guys to check this film out because I think you'll really enjoy it. And the last one being The Cloak, which is also a lot of fun, starring the lovely Ingrid Pitt in a role that's just tailor-made for her. She's just this over-the-top, like, femme fatale, you know, this movie star with the long cigarette thing, you know. I love it. It's classic. I love it. And she's so vampish and so perfect for this role. So we meet this guy who is a film star, and he does all horror movies. He stars in all horror movies, and he's working on this new one, and he thinks it's just an inept piece of junk, you know, and he starts beating up the set around him, saying, this is garbage, you know. And Ingrid Pitt is starring in the movie with him, you know, and he starts kind of losing his mind, you know. He's like, you know what? This movie needs something authentic. If we're going to do a vampire movie, we need something authentic. So he goes to this local, like, antique shop with all this funky, really old, ancient memorabilia. And this guy shows him this cloak, which is like a vampire's cloak, you know, the long black cloak with the red interior, you know. And he puts the cloak on and he's like instantly shocked, like some kind of madness almost comes over him, you know. And so he's like, wow, I think this will do nicely, you know. And he wears it onto the set of the movie that he's filming with Ingrid Pitt, and he gets so into the role that he actually bites her. And it starts to happen at home as well when they're at the home alone together at night. You know, he puts the cloak on again, you know, and Ingrid Pitt kind of makes fun of me, you know. You're out of your mind. It's just a cloak. There's nothing to it, you know. And I'm not going to tell you what happens, but there's a great twist in the end, and it's so much fun, and you guys are going to love it. Anyone who loves Hammer movies or Amicus films, you are going to love this movie. or British horror in general, or just horror in general. If you love classic horror, then you will love this movie. It's a great horror anthology movie, and it's just, I give it 2 devil horns way up, and thank you for joining me, Sean Patrick Urshan, in the Horror Corner. Tune in and stay scared.